So this was our first attempt. In 1916, we were on a trip to 2016. We were with our family. We were doing some genealogy stuff in Murphy, North Carolina, the Appalachian Trail. So we went to Springer Mountain, and we hiked it. Now, it was a 6-mile ride up a dirt road to the parking lot, and then about 9/10 of a mile to the top. Easy, fun. And so we thought, we could do this. We were driving down the road, and we saw this sign. Now, anytime you see a sign, whoops, I got a thing here. Anytime you see a sign with these white, well, I'm going to point to it. These white things, that means Appalachian Trail. And when you see a double bar, that means you're in trouble because it is a difficult trail. So we thought we would hike up the mountain. We did a mile in, and there was thunder on top of the mountain. It was the most interesting experience to be so close to thunder. It was really quite amazing. Well, we got off the mountain too before it rained, so that was good. And then Brady's dad actually worked at this dam, so we went to Fontana Dam, and guess what? The Appalachian Trail goes right across it. I didn't know it, but I was excited about it. And I could only get 3 of my 5 grandchildren to go across with me. But they hiked across it, and it wasn't that far, but yeah, it was fun. And then we did a couple more hikes in North Carolina, but this was in Tennessee. This was the last one we did in 2016. And it was really interesting because I did not know how to read things yet. So I thought it was 1 mile and 7/10 to the waterfall, but it was actually 1 mile into the AT and then 1 mile and 7/10 to the waterfall. So we did 5.4 miles that day over 2 mountains that were pure gravel at the top, you know, and you're going on this ridge. And anyway, that just gives you, let me see if I can do this. This gives you an idea of the steps that were partially up the mountain. It was very nice. Not the best we ever saw, but it was nice, and it was a good trip. So that gave us, kind of wetted our feet. We made no preparation for this at all. We had no backpacks, no water, no nothing. We just wanted to see if we liked it, and we did. So we decided we could make it, but we needed to make some preparation. When we were on top of Springer Mountain, we met 3 people who were planning on hiking in Japan, and he gave us some guidelines. He said, you need to hike at least a couple times a week in preparation for any big trail you're going on. So we hiked Paris Mountain, we hiked Jones Gap, we hiked up and down Rolling Green Village hills, and we thought we were ready. The books you see back there we bought, and we studied them. I decided what trips we would take in each state because it's a state-by-state book, and all the day hikes you can do in those states. And so we thought we were ready. We watched YouTube videos too on how to get that. Whoops, I did it, honey. Okay, so here we go. Food. You need food for the trip, right? So we took cheese sticks and jerky and nuts, and we bought the best stuff, you know, backpacks and water bladders that go around your neck and you just suck on the hose, and hiking boots, right? Those are really important. If you go to Paris Mountain, it says, wear your hiking boots. But guess what? I did not like hiking boots. See, I got my shoes on. So I ended up hiking in shoes pretty much the whole time. Grady liked his boots a little more than I did. And here we are. We went to, this is in Virginia, we went to Grayson Highlands State Park, and if you have grandchildren and you want to take them someplace special, it's about a 3-hour drive. In May, all the little colts are around. So that was just really fun. Now, that has nothing to do with the Appalachian Trail, I guess, but it does because they're on the trail. And we're hiking up the trail, and this little guy comes right up to Grady. Just great. And this was a male called Grandioso. He was gorgeous. And he had 4 females, and they had 3 babies so far. So this was one of his little colts. And you could go right up to him, pet him. But you can't feed him, so we didn't do that. And then if you go up Skyline Drive in Virginia, there's many trails off Skyline Drive because the Appalachian Trail kind of follows that. This was one that we went to. We went to several. But this was only about a mile. But the view when we got to the top was fantastic. There are the rocks, and there's Shenandoah Valley. But this was even more fantastic. That's Skyline Drive below us. So we really enjoyed that hike. And now we're back in Harper's Ferry, where it all started. Harper's Ferry, if you ever want to do a whole state on the Appalachian Trail, go to Harper's Ferry because it's 3 miles. That's all. So, but if you go south, which is where we went, you will see Loudon Heights Trail. So we thought we would do that. It was only about 5.5 miles. And so first you cross the Shenandoah River, and then you go under the bridge, and then you go up the mountainside. And it was a very difficult trail. I huffed and puffed on this one. It was 2 miles up, about 1,000 feet gain, and there was never a level spot. Interestingly enough, when we started out, there were quite a few people on this trail. When we got to the top, there wasn't anybody. So, and when we got to the top, there was no view, a meadow and no view. Kind of disappointing. The next day, we went to the C&O Canal and Weaverton Cliffs. This was across the railroad trestle that goes across the Potomac River, because that's how you get into Maryland, and you can see there are some people walking on it. And then we were on the C&O towpath. I didn't take a picture of it. It's a gravel walk for 3 miles. And it was so boring, but we did it 6 miles of it, 3 over and 3 back. And then we got to the mountain. So we hiked up the mountain, and we had a beautiful view. There we are at the top. And, I didn't put a view of the Potomac River. But anyway, I have a tale to tell you about this. I'm headed back down the mountain, and we ran into 2 ladies about halfway up. This mountain, actually, we gained 1,000 feet in 2 miles, but a lot of switchbacks. It was much easier to climb. So on the way down, I meet 2 ladies. Now, I had seen these 2 ladies get out of their car in Harper's Ferry and put on their heavy backpacks and start up the trail. They started about the same time we did. We've been to the top, and we're on our way, almost halfway back down, and they're coming up. And I'm kind of like to talk to people, so I said, "Wow, where are you ladies going?" They're going through Maryland, it's 40 miles. And I said, "Wow, how did you prepare?" And they said, "You can't prepare for something like this." I thought, wow, how old are you ladies? And they were in their 50s. And they had a little more weight than just their backpack to carry with them. And I just hope they made it. There was a shelter where they were headed, I'm sure, 6 miles away, but we had met quite a few people on the trail that were probably heading to the same shelter who were ahead of them. So I'm sure it was quite an interesting trek for them. Okay, I wanted to go here because this is called Appalachian Trail Lands. And the Appalachian Trail actually goes through, this is fun, Amish Mennonite farms. And so here you see the trail. That's me at the post because it's raining. This is the only trail we took in the rain. And we are headed toward that mountain. It was about a mile through these fields, and then we went up the mountain about a mile. So that was really a lot of fun, very different, got soaking wet. But we had a motel that night that had a jacuzzi and a king-size bed. So we just let it rain. And there we are in the rain under our umbrella. And there you can see a little rain on the umbrella and going up the mountain. Okay, I don't know if that's the next slide or not, so let me go back. Yep, that is. Okay. So here we are. this was a great hike. It would be an easy hike for anybody because we went about 4 miles on the ridge. You could drive up to a parking lot, and it was 70 degrees that day and beautiful. And this is what we walked under, these high-tension wires. And so one of the things you could do was get up on that rock, and that was the path up to the rock. Of course, we had to go. And this was the graffiti all over the top rock where that big tower was anchored. And there I am, cell service, so rare on the Appalachian Trail, overlooking the Susquehanna Valley, so beautiful. And I called my daughter-in-law. That was great fun. Okay, and then the end of our trail, or where we were going, was Table Rock, and so there we are, and Grady has to take pictures of it. This is actually the other side of the mountain, not the Susquehanna Valley, and you can see in the background there where the high-tension wires go through, or the, yeah. So, next, Pulpit Rock, a 10-mile hike. I think this is where I learned to hate rocks. But anyway, you can see, I'm going to just point. This tells you where to go, right? And if you don't find the next white blaze, you are lost. And so here is what happened. Oh dear, come back. You see that blaze over there with an arrow telling you to go that way? Good luck. I can't tell you that we got lost, but we did. Okay, so this is a mile rock field that we hiked over. Not climbed up, hiked over until we got to Pulpit Rock. Whoops, I don't have any more pictures of Pulpit Rock. Pulpit Rock was an interesting place. There were 13 other hikers there, but they didn't have to come up this way. They came up the easier way. And there was a man there from England who had taken a year off from teaching so he could hike the Appalachian Trail. We met another girl, not on this trail, but another one from Germany. She'd done the same thing and was over in the United States just to hike the Appalachian Trail. We met young girls. One of them had strep throat. No. And she had just gotten medicine. She was going to stay in the shelter overnight, and on she went. Many hikers are single hikers. Young girls, young boys, not a companion. They just hike, and then wherever they camp, or if they're at a shelter, there'll be other people there. And sometimes they go on with that group, and sometimes they go on by themselves. And you might ask, why do they do that? And it's because if you buddy up with somebody and they're a fast walker and you're a slow walker, pretty soon it just doesn't work. So unless you have a husband like mine who is very slow with me, he's very good at staying behind with me. Okay, so that was Pulpit Rock. The next one was Dunfield. This was in what kind of gap was that? Somebody here. New Jersey water gap or something.
Delaware water.
Delaware, thank you. And this was actually in New Jersey. It was absolutely beautiful. Oops, that doesn't take me where I want to go. Okay, so you can see how the trail starts out. We walked a mile up along the creek. The creek was beautiful. Trees, big trees down there. Must have had a storm, or they fall out of the mountainside because it's very steep cliffs on either side. Rushing water, little waterfalls. Oh, it was great. And so that was for a mile. And then we got off the trail and up the mountain. We had about 4 more miles to go, and we hit this rock field. Now, this one was the worst. This rock field, as you can see, the rocks are so close together, you can't get your feet on the ground. And so we had 1 mile of this. When I came to despise rocks, it was on this one.
This is not good for tennis shoes.
Well, those are my tennis shoes. See, I'm still wearing them.
You can feel that rock.
Okay. Okay, let's get this. I have one. Is that the last picture? No, there we go. And this kind of gives you a picture of the rocks. It doesn't really do justice, but when you're walking a mile on this stuff, yeah, it was fun. So we got up to this beautiful glacier lake. It was 1,500 feet above sea level. It's called Sunfish Pond. Guess how many people were up there? There was one other couple. When we started out at Dunfield, at the creek, we had many people on the trail. In fact, there were 2 senior groups and 1 Rhodes Scholar group on this trail. The Rhodes Scholar group, I got to talk to people, you know. So the Rhodes Scholars group, they were from all over the United States, and they'd flown in so they could hike this mountain. And they did. They hiked up until it went up the mountain, and then they hiked back down. And we went on. So anyway, that was kind of fun. But you know, when we turned around and went back down the mountain, guess what we faced? A mile of rocks. Yep. Okay, this one is in New York, and it was over a swamp. And I would never do it again, because we had a boardwalk and we had a bridge over the river. It was called Po-Chuck Junction. It was 93 degrees out that day, and we were in the sun, on the swamp, most of the way. It's not anything we wanted to repeat. We did, what did that bring up? I can't see it. We did eventually get into the mountain. We went 4 miles, so we had about, that was a round trip. We had about a mile on boardwalks and then a mile up the mountain. Not any place to want to go. Okay. Whoops. All right, this is a little different. I actually took this out of my book because I wanted to talk a little bit about Fitzgerald Falls. It was absolutely a beautiful place to hike. The map over there is what we used. We tracked everything with All Trails or Gaia, so we always knew where we were and how far we went, and if we got lost, we could find our way, which we did several times. But Fitzgerald Falls was a falls, and honey, it looks like that other one didn't make it. Yeah, the one with the falls didn't make it. So that isn't the falls, that's just part of the falls. But as we walked up the falls and then into the mountain, we saw rock walls. This is in New York, and the most beautiful creek. And I could just, I'm kind of, you know, like to imagine things, so I wanted to kind of stay behind and imagine these people that used to live there, you know, and they had all these boundaries. It was so pretty, and he's way ahead of me, and I'm dreaming. So then we're going to Mombasa High Point, where we can see New York City. So we got up there, and all we could see was each other. So we took a picture of us. Too many trees, no view. So I just want to say that I gave you kind of a sampling of the kind of trails we were on, but they weren't all bad. There were some really beautiful ones and some surprises. So this is still back at Grayson. And here was a lovely trail. And this one is actually when we went up to that Mombasa Heights and where all the rock walls were. So this last picture kind of gives you a feeling of course, everything had grown up, but how the rocks were, and yeah, I really like that one. And that is the end of 2017, and I have something that I want to share with you. So before I get into Carver's Gap, I want to read. Now, I pretty much detailed all of our walks on Facebook. So in June 15, 2017, I put this in my Facebook. Well, friends, life has taken an interesting, no pressure, okay turn. Excuse me. And I am on my way home. I told him I'd cry, and he ought to read it because this was kind of my life's dream, and I had to turn around and come home. The reason I had to come home was because I had carpal tunnel symptoms when I left. I thought if I walked and used my poles, I'd get better, and I got so bad that I couldn't go any further. So it wasn't until a year ago, in November 28th, that I finally had surgery and got rid of the pain. But I gave up. I just really gave up. And it was in April that Grady said, why don't we finish it and we'll start at Mount Washington, which was really my goal. And so I said, maybe we can do it. So we began very out of shape, needing to hike. So that's what we did. We went to Carver's Gap. Actually, it was Ole, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Furman, where we got the idea to go here. It's about a 3-hour drive from here. A marvelous place to hike. You go through a little woods. How come that picture didn't come up? There it is. We go through a little woods, and then you're on this gorgeous bald, they call it. It's round bald. And you have a view of the mountains. What are they? Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge. You could actually see Mount Mitchell from there. And then you can see the trail that goes up to the next.
Mount Mitchell in the background, way back in the back.
Yeah.
The mountains, they're all the same height. You'll get smaller and smaller as you get farther away. Look at the difference. Mount Mitchell's way in the distance and more than double the height. It's 25 miles away. Wow.
Yeah, so, and then this was Round Bald, and then you could walk up to Jane Bald. That was the trail. We did that. I don't know if I have a picture of that. Nope, I have a picture of it with Joe. He liked to go with us when we hiked. Joe's our youngest son. And so there we are hiking. We also did a Jones Gap around the village until we thought we were ready to go. So it was July 15th that we left, and we are on our way to Maine. Now remember, Grady said, let's go to New Hampshire first and see Mount Washington and see if we can make it the rest of the way. And we were able to do that. So, things were a little different on this one though. We found no food. We never ate any of it. You know, when you hike, you don't get hungry, you only get thirsty. So no need to take food. We did take heavier clothing. I didn't take my boots this time. I only took my shoes, but he took his boots. And no poles for me. I still could not use poles, but we developed a system where he'd get up on the rock and pull me up with his pole. It worked great. So here we are. Now, you might say, why Mount Washington? When I was 19, I climbed it. And so that was really my goal, was to climb Mount Washington again. So there I am, 74, and there I am, 19. So it was something that I didn't think I could really hike to the top at this age. So we drove up the wonderful road to the top of Mount Washington, which was great. And when we got to the top, it was 40 degrees with a 50-mile-an-hour wind. So it was our goal to hike 3 miles across the top. We ended up hiking 1.5 miles. The wind blew him over. Can you imagine? Blew him over. And then the wind blew me over. But, oh, this is a wonderful picture. I look like an armadillo. But anyway, that was the path. Wherever it is, I don't know, somehow you found your way. Yeah, so because it was so cold and so windy, we made 1.5 miles up there. Those pointy things marked the trail. Yeah, couldn't get lost, right? And this just shows you the clouds were coming in over the mountain, and the weather can turn bad just instantly on Mount Washington. So we, that's one of the reasons we turned around. The other reason was I was exhausted. So anyway, the next place we went to was Mount Katahdin. That's the terminus, folks, but I didn't take the picture. I took it off of the internet. We never made it to the top, but we tried. Here we are. We've already gone 1.1 miles from the campground, and we have 4.1 miles to go. So we hiked this. Do you remember? Oh, well, first, we came to this, 1 mile up, we came to this bridge and over this gorgeous falls. It's probably the prettiest falls that we saw anywhere. This is Mount Katahdin River or Creek Falls. Okay, that wasn't a bad hike up that mountain for the first mile, and then those are steps. Not too bad. Those are rocks. They did tell us when we went into Baxter State Park and we told them we were going to hike up to the top, they said, well, make sure you take the Applachian Trail. We said, no, we're going to take the AT. The Applachian Trail is apparently much easier. But, you know, we wanted to fulfill our dream here. So there's rocks. There's more rocks. Let's see. More rocks. And they got bigger the higher we got. And there's no trail. You just have this rock pile going up and down the mountain, and you find your way around. Some of the boulders were probably as high as this room and maybe half the size. Well, not all the way back. But anyway. And so Grady, there you see him, he has to get on top and pull me up. So we went up 4 hours, 4 miles. Now, you have to understand we're rather old and slow. And the young people would go up and be on their way back down and pass us. This one guy wore a kilt. I had to talk to him. He said he liked it. That's why he wore it. But anyway, at 4 hours and talking to these fellows, they said it'd take us at least 2 more hours to get up to the top. We figured, doing our statistics, it would be probably 13 hours on the trail. Now, when you're in Maine, they told us to be at the campground between 6 and 7 a.m. because the sun rises about 4:30. And so that's what we did. And we were on the trail by 8, and we were back down, what, at 9 hours, you figured out. So anyway, yep, more rocks. Well, we decided to turn around and come back down. Do you have any idea how much time it took us to get back down? 4 hours up, 5 hours down. Some of these rocks are so huge that if I slid down them, it would be really trouble. And so you have to kind of put your rear end here and your feet over there and kind of walk yourself down. But that was exciting. Yes, we took 4 days off after that, and we went to Acadian National Park and enjoyed ourselves. Okay. Then, oh dear, I clicked that too many times. Oh, sorry. This is something I'm very new at. Okay. That one doesn't work, does it? It's on top of each other. But anyway, we went to Danby, Vermont, and we hiked this really nice trail. And I'm not sure how much of it I can see, but you know how we've been on all kinds of trails? Well, this one had all kinds of trails on it. First, it had a real nice walk through the woods. I don't know if you can see it. It had an I-beam over the creek. We crossed the creek, I think, about 3 or 4 times. That one was an I-beam. Here was another way we crossed the creek. Yeah. We walked over swamp, more boardwalk. We climbed rocks on the other side of the lake when we got up to this little pond. But it was a lot of fun, and we liked the variety of the trail. Not too many rocks and not too many boardwalks. And, yeah. So, I don't know what this is. Oh, this is, you can see me over there. This is where the trail went right along the water. Sometimes the trail was in the water and didn't take us over a bridge. And not always were we in good health. This shows me with my knee brace on. Actually, we only wore it on one trip, and this is the one, and that seemed to take care of it. And then we were in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. Yeah.
Way to go.
Yep. And we hiked a place called Ice Gulch. So Grady's right at the...
Icy Glen.
Icy Glen. In my book, it was something else. But anyway, you can see the gulches. I don't know if you can see, it's right there. But it had the coolest air coming out of it. We just kind of stood there and enjoyed it. But Grady wanted to go further. We did, I don't know, about 7 miles. That gives you an idea of what we hiked up after we left the gulch. And then we went to a place called Mount Everett. I had to go there. You know, I wanted to say I climbed Mount Everett. Yeah. This was a sign we found there, and we were 1,500 miles, I guess I can read it here, from Springer Mountain, and we had, I think it says 600 and some miles to go to Katahdin. And then we went up to see the fire tower so we could get a view, but they had torn the fire tower down, and again, all we saw was each other, so it was good. Then we went on to Salisbury, Connecticut, and this would have been our last state and our last hike, and we did, it was called Lion's Head, a 6-mile hike, and we thought it wouldn't be too bad, but it was a mile straight up, not too bad, and then it was meadow. Do you know how encouraging meadows are? Yeah, they are encouraging. And then another mile straight up. That wasn't too encouraging. I really huffed and puffed on this one until we got to the top. And the top was a 30-foot rock that you had to scale if you wanted to see the scenery. So how are you going to scale a 30-foot rock? It did have some footholds in it. And how we ever made it, he would go up, put his pole down, pull me up. I mean, we made it. But to go back down it, that was scary. So here he is on top of the rock, looking out over the scenery. It was beautiful. And this would be in Salisbury, Connecticut. We did meet some people on this hike, and we saw a porcupine. That's the only time we saw anything like that. And he was a really nice young man. He was there with his family, and he said, if you don't want to go down that rock, there's a side trail. So he was so nice to take us and show us the side trail, and so we made it alive. So, and that, folks, was the end of our trail. Now, on the way back down, I have to say on the way up, I saw no beauty in this one. I have to say we got lost. We climbed over a nice barrier, and the mosquitoes were there wanting lunch. We got our can of spray. I mean, it wasn't fun. The whole way up, it was just hard, and I huffed and puffed, but on the way down, there was beauty. We crossed 3 creeks, and I think this is one of them, but you can't see it. And that, oh, that's the rock wall. I put that in just for Carl. Let me go back to that. This mountain, yeah, that's the rock wall. Can you see it over there? This mountain was called Bunker Hill, and we saw, I don't know how many rock walls. Let me see if I can do this.
The rocks are in the shallow up there. It's dark and hard to make it out.
This is a rock wall. And we saw, I counted 6 independent or individual rock walls. A lot of them were connected, but you knew somebody lived there at one time, and we had 3 creeks coming down the mountain, so it would be a great place years ago. Yeah, rock walls really fascinated me. And so we are done with our tour, but I just want to give you this. Crazy, well, I don't mean to. But that was Katahdin Falls, and it probably was that loud when we were there. It was so beautiful. Anyway, here we are. We took the 14th, whoops, I better talk. We took the 14th state challenge. So it was great fun. We experienced lots of different trails, as we shared with you. And I think I have one more thing here. Yes. And we hiked all of 131 miles in 3 years. Now, as you see, those were the last steps we took. That was actually at Bear Mountain State Park in New York, where we crossed the Hudson River on the bridge, which was part of the AT. But we had already been in New York, so I didn't include that. All right, so I'm done, and I hope maybe you have questions. If not, we don't even have refreshments, so.